There is a debt to be paid, and Quan Chi will pay it.
Alright, so today I'm doing a Mortal Kombat lore reversal. So as most of you know at this point in Mortal Kombat 1, the story of the Lin Kuei and the Shirai-Ryu has been altered quite a bit. No longer is Hanzo Hasashi Scorpion and Kuai Yang is Sub-Zero. Instead, Kuai Yang is Scorpion. Bi-Han is once again Sub-Zero, and Hanzo Hasashi, we have yet to understand what his place in the Shirai-Ryu is. So I decided to have some fun. What I'm doing now is I'm reversing it and now leaving it so that the Lin Kuei doesn't exist and Hanzo Hasashi is still Scorpion and is the leader of the Shirai-Ryu, and this time Kuai Yang is a part of the Shirai-Ryu as Sub-Zero. So I'm drawing an actual ninja Sub-Zero, which I don't believe has truly existed. If you're not aware, there's no such thing as a Chinese ninja. That's not really a thing. Ninjas are Japanese, and Sub-Zero has always supposed to have been Lin Kuei, which is essentially the Chinese equivalent. What I'm doing right now is actually designing a Japanese Sub-Zero or a ninja Sub-Zero. Now, basically, let's be honest, it's still going to be Sub-Zero as it's kind of always Sub-Zero. It just gives me an excuse to make him look more like a member of the Shirai-Ryu and more like a traditional ninja than what we see at different points in times in Mortal Kombat history, or even Shredder Ninja from Mortal Kombat Deception. And I made it a point to go with Kuai Yang simply because I still wanted the scar over his eye. No other reason. But in any event, let's go. Alright, starting off, I actually using a Sub-Zero pose as a base reference. I saw a lot of images with him with this similar pose, like he's summoning ice or something online. So I actually rolled with this. This is actually the pose in his, I want to say one of his character images for MK11, so I rolled with that here with the pose. After knocking out the pose, it was going into actual details. For his hood, I specifically looked at Scorpion's Mortal Kombat 11 hood, and I sort of liked his almost headband underneath the hood kind of look, so I wanted to replicate that with Sub-Zero. I also knew for whatever reason, because he's a member of the Shirai-Ryu, I didn't need him having a bunch of yellows and reds because I still wanted him to maintain a Sub-Zero look, but I did want him to have red just representing the Shirai-Ryu for whatever reason. I know yellow probably would have made more sense to actually use as a design, but I don't know, I just wanted the red just to kind of see how that would blend off of the blue in the design. So I went ahead with the hooded look. Not gonna lie, even when I gave him the little shoulder pad, and as usual I only gave him one, as I've said time and time again, I like asymmetry. His actual top just sort of looked weird to me until I actually got to the coloring phase. And it might have just been the pose being covered up a lot by his arm, but it just looked strange to me for quite a while. Then I almost gave him like a gauntlet, but I sort of still kept hand wraps over his arm. There were quite a few Lin Kuei designs that I actually looked at as a reference for Sub-Zero. Obviously I'm going to use Sub-Zero as a reference for Sub-Zero, but I just wanted to take a lot of his sort of Lin Kuei designs that look like non-traditional ninjas and just make them look sort of more traditional, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And then I also wanted to give him the baggy sort of old school ninja pants as well. And I gave him arm wraps similar to, I believe, Scorpion's MKX design, or excuse me, Hanzo Hasashi's MKX design. And then from there I just went ahead and filled out the line art and went on to the coloring phase. Now, before I get to the line art, I also made it a point to give him swords as well. I know it's kind of ridiculous considering that Sub-Zero makes so many sort of ice weapons as a thing in general, that it sort of isn't needed for me to actually give him swords. But once again, I wanted him to look more like a real ninja, so I figured he'd still keep the swords in handy instead of always having to use his ice powers. So for design purposes and no other reason, I actually gave him swords here. And double swords because two of them looks cooler. So after doing the line art phase, it was on the coloring. Like I said, I wanted red in pieces of his clothing, so I sort of did that on like his undershirt and his headband. And of course from there I knew it's Sub-Zero, so obviously a lot of his clothing is going to be blue. But outside of that, I didn't really know how I was actually going to color it or what I wanted his design to be. So this sort of became a lot of going off the cuff and on the fly type of painting, which happens to me a lot when I do this. Like I said before, I actually liked some of his variations in MK11, particularly some of his blue and white ones, so I wanted to make it a point to have some sort of white patches or coloring or something on his actual ninja outfit. Sort of a random design, but I liked the way it looked. And it helped with the blue and white boots that I gave him, because that was starting to look out of place without the actual white pieces in his coloring itself. So I needed to sort of make that make sense, or at least look right. And then I originally almost started making a lot of the wraps on his, or at least under his knee pads and on his boots, the same color as the ones on his wrists, but I don't know, I just thought the blue ones looked better. There was really no other thought process behind that, it just looked better to me, so I rolled with it. So after surprisingly getting the coloring done a lot faster than I anticipated, it was onto the shading phase, which helped a lot because with the sort of shinier pieces of his clothes, I could sort of see the highlights in my mind. So doing the shadows specifically on stuff like the shield and whatnot, it made the rest of the picture sort of flow a lot easier. I could start really seeing the Sub-Zero, or at least the Ninja Sub-Zero, starting to come together a lot better now. Now, what was annoying though was a lot of his shadows doesn't actually show up on his, just because of the way I shaded the picture, it's not really showing up a lot on his upper part of his gi. And then as usual, doing the highlights, sort of brought the rest of the picture together. And also kept the material of the clothes from looking bland. It's actually very rare, but occasionally it'll happen where I'll do one of these and actually paint a picture where the picture has actually come together beautifully by the time I've done the shadows and not even like touch the highlights just yet. Obviously this wasn't one of those pictures. This started to pop a whole lot more once I started doing the highlights, specifically on the sort of black areas of his clothes. And let's be real, this whole thing of me doing a sort of Shirai-Ryu Sub-Zero, it gave me an excuse to basically just draw my favorite character as a straight up ninja pretty much, and use it as an excuse to make a brand new design for him. That's pretty much it. Just wanted to draw Sub-Zero. I've been drawing him all my life, why stop now? So once the shadows was done on the actual swords themselves, I was finished, and I had Shirai-Ryu Kuai Yang. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm curious as to whether or not you guys think that this Sub-Zero looks like he still just looks like a Lin Kuei ninja, or if he looks like he would rather be serving in Scorpion's clan or not. Be curious to know what your feedback was on that. But that's the video. Go ahead and leave a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I have a lot more of these redesigns and a lot more coming. And thanks for watching. You all have a good one, and I'm out.